Remember those transforming robots that weren't Transformers? Gobots arrived first, dominated toy stores initially, then got completely erased from cultural memory by their Hasbro rivals.
And on the left is the 802-story Von Mises Tower, the tallest building in Gobots.
Today, we're counting down 20 wild facts about the robots that lost the Transformation War and became Saturday morning's greatest what-if story. Gobots actually beat Transformers to American stores. Here's the timeline that matters. Tonka released Gobots toys in America in May 1983, a full year before Hasbro's Transformers hit shelves in May 1984.
Let go of me, you disgusting garbage eater!
Enjoy your stay!
Gobots had 12 months of market dominance with zero competition in the transforming robot category. The toys were licensed from Bandai's Machine Robo line, which had existed in Japan since 1982. Tonka saw the potential and moved aggressively to secure American distribution. Before anyone else recognized the category's viability. For one glorious year, Gobots owned the transforming robot market completely. Toy industry analysts predicted Gobots would become the next Star Wars-level toy phenomenon. Then Transformers launched with superior marketing, storytelling, and Hasbro's distribution power, and everything changed almost overnight. The show was created in 4 months. Hanna-Barbera produced Challenge of the Gobots in an impossibly compressed 4-month timeline. From initial concept to broadcast premiere, Tonka approached them in February 1984, demanding a television show ready for September syndication to compete with Transformers' upcoming cartoon. Writers had 6 weeks to develop characters, mythology, and episode concepts. Animation production began before scripts were finalized, forcing animators to work from rough outlines and character descriptions. Voice recording happened simultaneously with animation rather than sequentially, creating continuity chaos.
Can we go inside?
Maybe later. I've got a lot to show you in not much time.
The rushed production showed immediately. Inconsistent character designs, plot holes, recycled animation footage, and visible errors appeared throughout the first season. The breakneck schedule was driven purely by competitive panic. Tonka knew Transformers would dominate if Gobots didn't establish television presence immediately. The toys transformed simpler than Transformers. Gobots toys transformed in 3 to 5 steps.
Okay, I'm aboard!
Compared to Transformers' 8 to 15-step transformations. This wasn't a design flaw. It was Tonka's deliberate marketing strategy targeting younger children aged 4 to 7, while Transformers aimed at 8 to 12-year-olds. Simpler transformations meant lower manufacturing costs, allowing Tonka to price Gobots at $2 to $4, compared to Transformers' $5 to $10 price points. Parents appreciated the affordability and simplicity. However, older children who could handle complex transformations perceived Gobots as baby toys. This age-targeting decision proved catastrophic. The older demographic Transformers captured had more sustained interest, collected more extensively, and became lifelong fans. Gobots' younger audience aged out quickly and didn't develop the nostalgic attachment that would sustain the franchise long-term. Leader 1 was voiced by an Oscar nominee. Lou Richards voiced Leader 1, the heroic Guardian Commander.
The other Gobots, maybe not as glamorous. Scooter and Turbo and everybody else, they have their own transformations.
Despite being primarily known for dramatic film roles and having received an Oscar nomination for The Godfather Part 2, Richards took the voice acting job purely for steady income during a slow period in his film career. He approached the role with complete sincerity, delivering dramatic performances for lines like, "Gobots, let's show them the power of logic and courage." That could have sounded ridiculous, but felt genuinely heroic. Richards later admitted he initially felt embarrassed about voice acting in a toy commercial disguised as a cartoon, but came to respect the craft after working with professional voice actors. His serious approach elevated Leader 1 above typical cartoon hero characterization. Though Richards never mentioned Gobots in interviews and seemed to consider it a minor footnote in his career, the show had no series Bible. Unlike Transformers, which had a detailed series Bible establishing character personalities, relationships, and world-building rules, Gobots had nothing. Writers received toy catalog descriptions and made up everything else. This created massive continuity problems. Characters' abilities changed between episodes, relationships contradicted previous episodes, background characters appeared and disappeared randomly. The Guardian homeworld's name changed 3 times across the series. No writer knew what other writers were doing, creating a narrative mess that frustrated even casual viewers. One writer later revealed, "We were told, write stories about good robots fighting bad robots. And that was literally all the guidance we got." The lack of story oversight reflected Tonka's view that the show existed purely to sell toys, not create coherent entertainment. Psykill was more complex than Megatron. Psykill, the renegade leader, received surprisingly nuanced characterization for a toy commercial villain. Unlike Megatron's straightforward quest for power, Psykill was portrayed as a revolutionary who genuinely believed Guardians were corrupt oppressors. Several episodes showed his perspective sympathetically, suggesting the Guardian-Renegade conflict had legitimate ideological dimensions rather than simple good versus evil dynamics. Episode 14, Psykill's Revenge, explicitly portrayed Leader 1 as having wronged Psykill in the past, creating moral ambiguity unusual for 1980s toy cartoons. Writer Jeff Siegel later admitted he deliberately wrote Psykill as more interesting than the boring hero because villains were more fun. This complexity made Psykill more memorable than Leader 1, though it confused young viewers who couldn't understand why the bad guy sometimes made good points. The animation was outsourced to 6 different studios. Budget constraints forced Hanna-Barbera to split animation production across 6 different international studios, 3 in South Korea, 2 in Japan, and 1 in Taiwan. Each studio had different quality standards, resulting in wildly inconsistent visual quality between episodes and even within single episodes. Some sequences featured smooth, detailed animation, while others looked barely finished. Character designs changed sizes and proportions constantly. Transformation sequences were animated differently every time they appeared because different studios interpreted character designs differently. Episode 23 features Leader 1's head changing shape 3 times in a single scene because footage was animated by different studios and edited together. Modern viewers find the inconsistency distracting, but 1984 audiences watching on small televisions didn't notice or didn't care enough to complain vocally. There was a theatrical movie that bombed Gobots, Battle of the Rock Lords, premiered in theaters in March 1986, positioning itself against Transformers' theatrical film, released months later. The Gobots movie had a $3 million budget compared to Transformers' $6 million, and the difference showed immediately. Limited animation, minimal voice cast, and a rushed 75-minute runtime created a product that felt like extended television episodes rather than cinematic storytelling. The film grossed only $1.3 million domestically, a catastrophic failure that barely covered distribution costs. Critics called it cynical toy advertising masquerading as entertainment. The toys sold better initially than Transformers. In 1984's holiday season, Gobots outsold Transformers by approximately 15% in total units moved. Tonka's lower price points and earlier market entry gave them crucial early advantage. Parents buying gifts for younger children chose affordable Gobots over expensive Transformers. Toy industry publications named Gobots one of 1984's best-selling toy lines. However, this initial success was misleading. Transformers generated higher revenue despite moving fewer units because their premium pricing created better profit margins. Hanna-Barbera reused animation from other shows. Budget desperation led to Hanna-Barbera inserting animation footage from completely unrelated shows into Gobots episodes. Background crowd scenes were lifted from Super Friends. Explosion effects came from Thundar the Barbarian. Vehicle chases reused footage from C-Lab 2020 with color filters applied. One episode features a spaceship interior that's obviously from Battle of the Planets with different characters composited over the original footage. Animators called this Frankenstein animation. Stitching together whatever existing footage could be repurposed regardless of visual consistency. The human characters were more annoying than Spike and Sparkplug. Matt Hunter, Nick Burns, and AJ Foster were the show's human protagonists, and audiences despised them immediately. Unlike Transformers' human characters who occasionally contributed meaningfully, Gobots' humans existed purely to be rescued repeatedly. They were captured in 47 of the show's 65 episodes. A staggering 72% of all episodes featured humans needing rescue. Writers seemed unable to conceive storylines where humans helped rather than hindered. Voice direction emphasized shrill, panicked delivery, making their dialogue grating fan mail to Hanna-Barbera overwhelmingly requested less humans, more robots. The show featured actual historical figures as characters. Multiple episodes featured time travel storylines where Gobots encountered Leonardo da Vinci, Cleopatra, King Arthur, and Abraham Lincoln. These weren't educational episodes, they were budget-saving devices. Using historical settings meant animators could reuse backgrounds from previous Hanna-Barbera historical cartoons. The historical figures received minimal characterization and existed purely as plot devices. Episode 31 featured Leonardo da Vinci helping repair Gobots using Renaissance technology, which made zero logical sense but allowed writers to avoid explaining technical details. The time travel gimmick became so overused that 6 episodes across the 65-episode run featured historical settings. Nearly 10% of the series, Tonka refused to let characters die permanently, unlike Transformers, where characters could be destroyed and permanently removed from the show. Tonka prohibited any Gobot from being killed. Their reasoning: every Gobot represented a toy they wanted to continue selling. Even severely damaged characters would be repaired by the next episode with no explanation. This created narrative problems where battles had zero stakes. Audiences knew no character could die, removing all tension. Writers complained the restriction made storytelling nearly impossible. The climax of the theatrical movie featured apparent character deaths, but the studio forced reshoots, adding a final scene showing all dead characters had somehow survived. The toys had a fatal design flaw. Gobots toys used cheap plastic pins and joints that broke easily with repeated transformation. The simple transformation mechanism that made toys affordable also made them fragile. Within months of purchase, most Gobots developed loose joints, causing them to fall apart in vehicle mode or collapse unexpectedly in robot mode. Parents complained about poor quality, and consumer advocacy publications cited Gobots as poorly made toys not worth their price despite being cheaper than competitors. Transformers' more expensive construction used metal pins and tighter tolerances, creating toys that survived years of play. The show's cancellation was announced mid-season. In March 1985, while new episodes were still airing, Tonka announced Challenge of the Gobots would not receive a second full season. The decision shocked cast and crew, who learned about cancellation from trade publications rather than official notification. The final episodes were already animated and scheduled to air through May 1985, creating an awkward 3-month period where everyone knew the show was dead, but new content kept appearing. The abrupt cancellation resulted from catastrophic sales declines. By early 1985, Gobots were moving less than 40% of their 1984 numbers, while Transformers sales were accelerating. Voice actors worked for scale with no residuals. Unlike Transformers' voice cast, which negotiated residual payments for reruns and international broadcasts, Gobots voice actors received only minimum union scale payments with no residuals. This cost-saving measure attracted less experienced voice talent and created lower production values in vocal performances. Several voice actors were recording their first professional roles and lacked the technical skill to deliver consistent character voices. Between-episode vocal inconsistencies resulted from actors forgetting how they'd previously performed characters. The franchise lost a trademark lawsuit. In 1987, Tonka was sued by a Canadian toy company that had been using the trademark Gobots for a children's book series since 1982. The Canadian company argued Tonka's Gobots infringed their existing trademark and demanded Tonka cease using the name. Tonka lost the lawsuit in Canadian courts and was prohibited from selling Gobots toys or airing the television show in Canada after March 1988. The decision was financially devastating, since Canada represented approximately 10% of North American sales. More significantly, the trademark vulnerability made Gobots a liability for any company considering acquisition. Hasbro now owns Gobots and refuses to use them. When Hasbro acquired Tonka Corporation in 1991, they gained ownership of all Gobots' intellectual property, character designs, and trademarks. For over 30 years, Hasbro has done essentially nothing with this asset. No new Gobots toys have been produced. The television show remains unlicensed for streaming and unavailable on home video. Trademark renewals are filed to prevent abandonment, but no commercial products use the property. Industry insiders suggest Hasbro views Gobots as a poisoned brand, too associated with failure to successfully revive. Additionally, producing Gobots content could confuse the Transformers brand Hasbro has spent billions developing. The show created the cheap Transformers clone genre. Gobots' commercial failure didn't stop dozens of companies from copying the formula throughout the late 1980s and early 1990s. RoboForce, Rocklords, Converters, Z-Bots, and countless other transforming robot toy lines flooded stores, all attempting to capture some fragment of the market. Transformers dominated these Gobots clones, universally featured cheaper construction, simpler transformations, minimal media support, and quick market exits. The phenomenon created a toy industry category called Transformer substitutes. Products parents bought because they were cheaper than Transformers, not because children actually wanted them. Gobots proved being first doesn't guarantee victory. Challenge of the Gobots is corporate history's perfect case study in how arriving first with a good idea isn't enough. Gobots had a year's head start, lower prices, simpler products for broader demographics, and initial sales success. They still lost completely to a competitor who arrived later but executed better across storytelling, toy quality, marketing sophistication, and brand building. Business schools literally teach Gobots as a cautionary tale about first-mover disadvantage when execution is poor. The franchise demonstrated that children's entertainment requires creative investment, not just product placement. Transformers succeeded because Hasbro and Marvel Comics built mythology, developed characters, and created emotional investment.